All right, it's 6 o'clock. Let's start. We do have a packed session. I want to welcome everyone tonight to this session. It's all about actually a really top conversation currently because it's so cold, and it's not just here in the southern part of Australia. It is actually everywhere. So it's all about actually stopping that cold, cutting costs. So an ultimate guide to navigating home improvements for comfort, efficiency, and also including actually the knowledge around excellence in service quality and how to point that out. Before we start, I really want to acknowledge also country. So in the spirit of reconciliation, Evitat acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. We pay our respect to the elders past, present, and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aborigine and Torres Strait Islander people today. We are here in particular today to listen, learn, and build a future together. So I welcome everyone to this exceptional panel round, and I'm actually really excited about it because we have not just a packed evening. We are basically coming from scorecard to actually affordable and comfortable homes through insulation improvements, thermal efficiency. And then we will also tap into what that means actually on the side of good service quality and what to look out actually, for example, around trained staff and accredited people to do the job. So we will tap in that full range today and give a lot of advice to homeowners directly, but also to the industry as well, because this is a great opportunity to look into. And I guess everyone here will have a lot to say about it. Maybe for each of you, just a quick introduction, and I will start also with Felicia, and maybe just add also one really fun fact. Do you think you can guess the temperature in your room you are right now? So a quick introduction and then maybe the temperature part.
So I'm Felicia Richardson. I run Enviroflex Insulation. I took it over about 6 or 7 years ago. We decided to specialize in, so I had a look at how big the retrofit market was, had a look at how many homes were really poorly built. And so we decided to specialize in that, and we committed ourselves to improving our industry. I'm also on the board of Insulation Australasia. And in the interest of energy efficiency, instead of having my wood fire burning at my farm, I've actually got my RCAC finally operating again. So I'm hoping in the room that I'm in, it's about 16 degrees, I think. But outside, I can tell you it's about 8, and the real feel would be about 2.
Okay. Thank you. And Danielle. Hand it over.
Sorry, you're right. Didn't mean to go over the top here then.
No worries. All good.
All right. Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Danielle King. I'm founder and director of a small family business called Green Moves Australia. And I basically do independent, like completely independent energy auditing, assessment, residential efficiency, primarily focused on existing homes and renovations. We do some business work as well, but also get involved with new builds occasionally. I'm on a couple of industry panels, government ones in terms of energy efficiency across Australia. I'm also on the Duke Green Building Institute board with Daniel Worm, who you'll hear about from in a sec. I've been working in the field for some 16 years, extremely passionate about making sure that people get the right advice and can then go out and do what's right for them, because every home and household is slightly different. There is no one size fits all, and it's really nice being able to give people really good practical advice that's specific to them. So yeah,
awesome. And your guess in terms of room temperature?
Well, I'm sitting inside our home and the heating's not on yet, and I reckon it's about 18 degrees. It's held on temperature pretty well today.
That sounds
but I
actually
know
really
much
good.
colder outside.
Yeah, awesome. Daniel Wurm.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm the manager of the Green Building Institute and I'm one of the directors. Green Building Institute is a not-for-profit, and Danielle King, who you just heard from, she's also on our board. So I'm originally a tradie, but I'm passionate about trying to change tradies' attitudes towards building sustainable homes. And so basically, I've worked with Danielle and some other leaders in the industry to create really high quality courses for tradies, for builders, for designers, and for everybody who's interested in it. Right here, I'm cheating because I've actually got a thermometer right next to me. So it says that it's 18 degrees, which is pretty good also because I've just finished building, well, about a year ago, we finished building our house and it's supposed to be energy efficient. It's actually got a scorecard rating of 10.
Wow.
And
Okay.
but yeah, I'm happy that we're able to keep it reasonably warm without using a lot of energy.
Amazing. Simona, I welcome you back. So I hand it to you.
Yeah, it's great to be back. Yeah, so I've been doing energy efficient sustainable homes for, I think almost 2 decades. I had a little break, as some of you might know or might have heard, my business, Queen Eco Designer, had to close. It got all a bit hectic. So it was a bit, a couple of hectic months, but yeah, I'm excited to be back. And yeah, so still doing energy efficient sustainable homes, but on a much smaller scale now. So pretty much back to basics, just me. And I'm excited to be here again. And the temperature in my home, I think it's actually a bit warm where I'm sitting. I think I'm dressed too much. I think it's like 21 or 20.
Amazing. And maybe just to say, I'm actually really glad that Simone is moving back into business again, because she brings in that not just the wealth of knowledge, but also that mission and vision really to create an affordable solution in terms of efficient and or high performing efficient home design, which I really think is urgently needed. Daniel Beaton.
Hi everyone, I'm Daniel here from the Evitat team. I'll be doing some polls and kind of running the chat in the background of the session. Normally at a relatively energy efficient home in Coburg. Cheating right now, I'm in the Northern Hemisphere and it's about 18 degrees inside where I am. So slightly warmer than everyone else.
Yeah.
And Sonia, if you could make me host so that I can run those polls during the session, that would be great.
Oh, okay, hang on.
Thank you.
I might need just to stop sharing quickly, just a second. And hang on.
We'll see if
I have to
anyone has
say,
any
Simon, it's really
questions
lovely
for
to see
anyone
you back.
during the session. Feel free to write them in the chat and we'll get to them at an appropriate time, or at the end, or one of our expert panelists will write to you in the chat and get those questions answered. I have a lot of expertise in the room.
Maybe on the last note about me, I'm actually co-founder of Evitat. Evitat is a digital platform for the build and renovation community. It's a data platform predominantly, but it's really helping actually make more conscious choices, collaboration between even material manufacturer, renewable energy system solutions, your designer, maybe like a passive house expert or an architect, the builder, as well as your home itself, which has a logbook, completely free to start. And you have the opportunity actually to collate all these good decisions. And whenever you're ready to sell, you can demonstrate that. So we will touch on this later because we have a packed session, and I will start sharing again. So before we maybe dive deep into the topics, I just wanted also to scratch on the terminology climate ready home, and what it is actually. So it is per definition an efficient home that reduces the need to turn on heating and cooling appliances for long stretches during heat waves or cold snaps. And why that matters, like we have heard, for example, these different temperatures in the homes. I myself live in a rental property. It's a beautiful, more than 100-year-old home, but it's a weatherboard, and I'm running the heating because it's freezing cold otherwise. I grew up in Germany, and I'm really, really cold during winter times here. So why that matters actually is we have climate change in the front of us, which actually increases certain weather events and patterns. We will be exposed to more likely extreme weather events. That means also maybe colder periods and hotter periods. And getting actually or putting some priorities around improving our thermal envelope in homes can not just actually cut cost, it creates really a healthy and a great, comfortable living environment. So on that note, I will hand over to Danielle to talk a little bit actually about the scorecard and the services it includes and how to understand actually the scorecard system.
Oh, thanks. I'll just give you a bit of an overview. We started doing residential efficiency scorecard, well, not scorecards actually, but efficiency assessments and advising clients from householders through to builders on good building design and appliances probably, oh gosh, over a decade ago, mainly because there was obviously a big need for it. And for those of you that are in the know or have done any work in the design field, you will know that 80% of the efficiency of a home is actually in the design, which is why we love having people like Simone Schenkel here, because that's her speciality. And it's really important to get it right the first time. But if you don't, then the next best opportunity to do something about it is when you renovate. So we found through just general efficiency assessments when there were no tools available that it was really difficult to quantify the benefits of things like additional insulation, better appliances, because just saying things like, well, you'll be more comfortable and the home will cost less to run and cool is just a little bit vague. So thankfully the scorecard appeared around, first time I ever saw it was around 2014, and I got involved with the state government doing pilots. And it was the time it was just a little baby spreadsheet. Now it's called a full-blown web-based tool, which is very, very impactful. And it was released to the market a few years later. So for those who are not familiar with the scorecard, scorecard is actually a rating tool which is being put together by the Victorian government. It's now actually a national tool, so you can have a scorecard assessment done anywhere in Australia. There are assessors in each major capital cities. And the number is building, and they all need to be accredited to use the tool. So the training and quality is quite good. So it gives you a scorecard rating based out of cost to run, which is what the stars are across the top. And the section on this slide that you see that's highlighted in red is the thermal performance, which is all about the insulation and the building shell. So the assessment itself covers the building shell and the key appliances, so heating, cooling, hot water, pool spas, any solar that you might have on the roof and other features. And it's actually very, very efficient. So, sorry to just straight. So I'll just move on to the thermal efficiency in the building shell now. So when I say thermal efficiency in the building shell, on that top image there, it's got the condition space and the red line. The red line is your building shell. So that's basically anything that separates you on the inside of the building from the weather on the outside of the building. It's really, really impactful on the efficiency of the home and how much heating and cooling you need, how comfortable you are, how much it costs to run, and it can even impact your health quite a bit. One of the things that we've found a lot is that, can you just go back to that other slide for a sec? Thanks. Yep. I just wanted to talk about the gaps for a bit, because the building insulation is one thing, but the insulation level is not so, you need that working in conjunction with good draft proofing. So all around that second area, insulation, diagram at the bottom where you've got the house with all the different areas where there's gaps are, that shows you where you can pretty well find just about every single gap, crack, air leakage point that you could probably find in a house. And that's important because when you're heating homes, most heating systems are heating the air and warming everybody by heating the air. If the air is not contained, like think fridge and your cold air coming out of the fridge, then it's going to make the systems work harder. You're going to be less comfortable and it's going to cost more to run. So that's where that all comes from. So it's also been shown to impact on health as well. They did some studies through Sustainability Victoria a few years back that found that when they improved the building shell of the home and made it more comfortable, people weren't getting so sick. So that had that's quite an interesting finding for all that. Right, do you want to go to the next slide? Thanks. So just to give you an idea of the impact that drafts can have, it can actually impact the comfort of the home by about anywhere between 10 and 25%, depending on how many drafts there are and the type. And you can see by this graph here, this was part of the home retrofit study done here in Victoria a few years back. This shows the square meters of air leakage per hour that's caused by different air leakage sites. So as you can see, the chimneys at the bottom, you know, they're very good at doing what they are designed to do, which is to suck air out of a house. But when you're trying to keep it warm, if you're not using the chimney, that's not helpful. Other things that we find are challenging, of course, are things like evaporative coolers, just general gaps around windows and doors and things like that. So it's always useful to, you know, check your draft proofing, do a bit whenever you notice that there's a gap, because it will help to improve your comfort and also keep your heating costs down. The next biggest issue, do you want to go to the next one? Thanks, is windows, because windows is usually outside of insulation the next weak point. So the top 4 or 5 things on here, which are highlighted in green, talks about the glazing and the windows. So triple glazing, highly efficient. Don't see much of it in Australia, sadly, because it doesn't get as cold as it does in Europe. But double glazing, heavy pelmets and curtains are really the best if you can get them across, you know, in Melbourne, particularly in the southern states. Double glazing with low-E coating, drapes and pelmets and double glazing on its own. You can see they're the ones that are the most efficient. And the most inefficient are things like single glazed aluminium and things like that that are not protected, because that just allows the heat to escape out very, very quickly, and which means that you have to reheat the air again, hence more heating systems running and more cost. So if you go to the next one. So when we start looking at, once you've sorted out windows and drafts, your insulation really is quite important, because particularly in winter, and I will focus on winter because that's where we are and we're all a bit cold, you can lose up to 25 to 35% through the ceiling. I've found some homes where it's higher than that, and the impact has been much more significant once it's been fixed or repaired. But the insulation does need to be consistent. It does need to be of a good depth, and it does need to be fitted properly, which is where the quality of work comes in quite importantly. But if you have, particularly in winter, most of it will go through the ceiling or through the windows. So make sure your ceiling insulation is good if you can. If it's not so great, get it repaired and get it topped up. Windows and walls are the next most important thing in terms of priority. And underfloor, it depends what sort of flooring you've got. If your floor is raised and you get high airflow underneath it, then it will make a difference and you will need to insulate under your floor if you can. If it's on a slab, there's not much you can do about it. So it depends on the home, which is why everything's quite different in terms of what the right thing to do where. But it really does have a big impact if the insulation is not good. And I see this every day, and I saw it again twice yesterday when I was doing work. You look into people's roofs, they might have good bats, but if they're not consistent and they're not laid properly and they don't go right across to the edge of the actual wall itself and the ceiling, then it's kind of like, it's like being in a bed with a blanket with holes in it, because that's literally what it is. So, you know, I always say ceiling insulation is like a blanket over your house. You know what it's like if you're in bed and you have a blanket and there's holes in it, you're never going to keep really warm. It's not going to be particularly comfortable. And it's the same with the ceiling insulation, you know, and even down to the walls, etc. Very important. It only takes 5% of gaps in your ceiling insulation to render it 50% ineffective. So that's why the coverage is important. So it's really, really key to make sure that it's fitted properly. And I know you asked me to talk about the main reasons why and questions that we get right now. Just about every single call we're getting right now, because we get a lot of calls for assessments, particularly when electricity costs go up, which is twice a year, January and July. And again, when it's really cold, like it is now, we are really being inundated with calls for assessment. And the biggest reason for this by far has been the cold. Homes are struggling to keep warm. The people living in them are just not comfortable. And as a result, energy costs are much higher because they're having heating on all the time. They're not getting the temperature and they're still not comfortable. And of course, this is mostly due to drafts in the home, poor glazing and poor insulation of the building shell, which I think is coming up next.
Yes.
Have I missed anything?
No, I think you're pretty much, and we will lead in a second also to the next panelist, but maybe just to recap a little bit. So can you just maybe tell us again, you know, what's the biggest difference actually to other energy assessments? Why does scorecard actually fit so beautifully?
Yeah, look, the scorecard's really useful because it quantifies the benefits. So there's two sections of the tool. One is focuses on cost to run, which is the initial star rating at the top from 1 to 10. And most houses across Australia are averaging at 3 stars, which is really poor. You know, but you won't get above 8 without solar on the roof because that contributes significantly to the cost to run the home in a good way. But the next one under that, which is, of course, the building shell, that's marked out of 1 to 5, which is really just the thermal performance and how comfortable the house will keep you during cold seasons or hot seasons without having to use heating or cooling. So that's that mark there. So we've done several bits of work with renovations where people have particularly wanted to get a before and after and understand what the right, you know, what's going to have the most impact. And the good thing about the scorecard tool, and we've done this with builders, where it actually quantifies, you get like the before, here's where you're rating, your cost to run might be 2 stars. And like my house, for example, this was a good example. My house was terrible when we bought it 7 years ago. I did a scorecard rating on it, was 1 star, which was particularly sad. And I had a blower door test on it to check insulation and everything else, which came out. And basically it said we were living in a tent, which was true at the time. We did some quite significant renovations. So we got the ceiling insulation redone. We actually got all the walls done while we were at it. We didn't need to do under the floor because it was quite well sealed. We upgraded what glazing we could. And the house now rates at 7.5 stars. And then we put solar on the roof as well, just a small system. But couldn't get to 10 without removing the pool. And my kids aren't going to be happy with me removing the pool. So we still got the pool. But
yeah,
it really
that's
makes
a compromise.
Yeah, I know. The house is now super comfortable though. I mean, we can sit in here and usually it's been a little bit different this last couple of weeks because it has been like particularly cold. But usually we have the heating on for an hour or 2 in the morning and it holds the heat for the whole day. We don't, you know, we've got the north facing glazing, which is really important in winter to keep that sun and warm the home up as well. So here we are now, what is it? 25.6 and we still haven't got the heating on. Whereas awesome. I know a friend of mine has her heating running almost all day just to keep the house warm. So it's really to make quite a significant difference in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Simona, do you have a question for Danielle?
Yeah, I really, or maybe just a comment. I really like the scorecard because, you know, with me, often people come to me, you know, they want to improve their homes. But the thing is, you know, obviously I can tell people, you know, what they can do, you know, how to put in, where to put in insulation or with windows and drop ceiling. But I cannot quantify what the savings, you know, the improvements are. I can say, you know, it will be more comfortable. You will save on your energy bills. But I think the beauty with the scorecard is some of the other assessments that you actually get the kind of the checking, you know, what am I using now? How much can I actually save? You know, what's the payback time? So I think it's a really good solution to give a bit of backing, you know, to what we know through, you know, that we should improve our homes, but it makes it.
Yeah. And just, you know, I can just give you an example. I'm just trying to look up the actual numbers, but just going off memory. If you have a house and it's rated at 1 star, you can expect to be paying over $5,000 a year in energy bills, right? That's how much they've calculated that it will cost, and that's using average behaviours like average amount of time you turn on heating, cooling, etc., depending on where you are. If you have a even an 8-star home, that will come down to about $900 a year. If you have a 10-star home, the cost would be next to zero, because of the solar. That's why you can't get 10 stars without why you can't get over 8 stars without solar, because solar contributes to the energy used in the home, which is free in terms of cost to run. But yeah, 10-star home should cost very little, if anything at all, to run, and Daniel can probably attest to that.
Yeah.
Worm.
Yeah, so I can speak from experience with the scorecard. So we had an old 1940s cottage. I live up in the Dandenongs. It was just absolutely shocking little cottage. And before, we got a scorecard assessment done when we did some minor renovations on it, and I think it came out at around about 2.5 or 3 maybe. And so then we did a renovation on it, put in double glazing, fully insulated, and after that was done, we then had a 7-star scorecard rating. And then by putting on a 6.6 kilowatt solar system, we were able to achieve 10 stars. So yeah, like the scorecard system, the scorecard assessments definitely helped identify what was the best value for money, what needed to be done to get the biggest bang for your buck. So yeah, Danielle helped me personally with that. So yeah.
Right.
So just speaking with another mom yesterday, and she was saying during the school holidays, because it was so cold and they were home all day and the heater on, their last gas bill for 2 months was $1,200, and she almost had a chair. That's really beyond ridiculous.
Yeah, that's true. Absolutely. Well, that brings us directly to Felicia and EnviroFlex. So I hand that over to you.
So I'm going to be a bit naughty, and I'm going to skive back to Danielle's slide that was there, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Just the last one. Thank you. And thank you, Danielle. One of the things I'd like to talk about is the amount of under insulation that is happening, basically. So prior to 2005, insulation wasn't mandatory. So if you had it, you were a very big greenie. And typically, if you had it, it was a very, very low grade. It was a very low value. So when I took over EnviroFlex about 6 years ago, so I did some modelling on it, and I estimated there was about 600,000 homes in Victoria that were either not insulated or under insulated. So thinking has changed, and sorry, I'll just say, we pay so much for our homes in Victoria, be it us buying them, be it us renting them. We pay so much that we have an expectation that they are fit for purpose. So be you in a cottage, my cottage in Richmond, or be you in a place in Toorak. We went and we retrofitted a penthouse apartment in Toorak the other day, and that had no insulation in the roof. So, and I can promise you it was built after 2005. So there is an expectation. So what Danielle is saying with regard to getting your home assessed, it is really important, because we think that we're protected. We think that we have all this going on. But Sonia is one of the very, very many people who have said to me, I've lived in Europe in extreme climates, and I've never been so cold as I am in Australia. Never. So this is super common. It is because, quite frankly, we like our buildings cheap and quick, right? And this is the legacy that we've got from it. So, and really, they're not that cheap either. So there you go. No. The other thing that I'd like to say about that too is, so while we have this whole the old stock of buildings that need retrofitting and need looking at, we also have a problem with regard to when new builds are going up, that there isn't a point where the thermal envelope is checked. And this is really, really key. I run a retrofit business. Bring me your stock to retrofit all day long, but I don't want that. What I want is to cut it off at the head, and I want everyone who builds a new house to go into something that is meeting the National Construction Code.
That's actually quite a big thing, Felicia. Yeah. I mean, one of the houses I did an assessment on yesterday was built in 2018, and the parts of the wall insulation were missing. I could see it with a thermal image camera that parts of them were missing. Like that, particularly above the windows and the doors, the bats hadn't been put in. They were in the walls, but they certainly weren't above the windows and doors. The windows and doors were just single glazed aluminium. How it got through a Met compliance code, I'm not sure. The bats in the ceiling would have been about R4.5, R5, but they weren't consistent, and there were gaps, you know, all over the place. You know, and ducting is sitting down on top of it, and it had been moved, and it was just wasn't up to code. And we've actually been asked a couple of times in the last 2 months, you know, do we come in, can we do compliance checks to make sure that the home was built to what they were expecting it to be built to? So, you know,
I love that, and I hate to tell you, because, you know, once again, you're paying a lot of money to have your house built. You have an expectation that you're going to get what you've asked for, but what often happens is insulation installation is often absorbed by other trades in the new build market, and builders like it because then they don't have to manage too many trades on site. It's easy to put it all together. And you know, and if the plasterers get there before the insulation is done, and the plaster goes up, quite frankly. And you know, so one of the things, look, we've worked, and we'll get into this, but we worked on the certification with regard to the retrofit industry. But what we really need is some compliance around the new build industry. That is really, really key. So, because at the moment, as I say, so the building surveyors don't come in to give you a certificate of occupancy until the plaster's up. So if you have a certificate of insulation, that is considered compliant. So guys, honestly, and I'm not doom scrolling or whatever, doomsdaying here kind of thing. If you are building something new, think about going, you know, and I don't necessarily usually encourage this, but think about going and taking your PowerPoints off and sticking your phone up your wall and taking a photo.
You've actually got to go check. Yeah, that's what
we did
when
we
were doing our renovation. Yeah, I actually came on site every day, much to the builder's disgust, but he got used to me and he learned a lot, so that was good. So now he does sustainable homes, so I'm happy. But he but yeah, when our house was being done, I was here every day, and you know, telling him, you've missed a bit here. It doesn't matter. It's just a corner. Yes, it does matter. Put that bit in there. And you know, so you actually have to be there or have someone check it before the plastering goes up, because once it's up, it's very difficult.
Well, and the other thing is, and the other thing is that a lot of libraries will actually rent out thermal cameras or
yes, that's right,
borrow out thermal cameras. And so go and have a bit of a look, basically. You know, and it's not necessarily gospel, because obviously there's an art to actually knowing how to use them and things like that. But you know, we've been to houses where around the PowerPoints are insulated.
Yeah.
Around the manhole is insulated. You know, part of the ceiling. So it's what you're talking about, Danielle, but it's at a bigger extreme. And one of the reasons things like this happen, quite frankly, is that people are incentivized by speed often in the industry rather than by quality. And this is something that I've been banging on about for a long time. And you know, there's a need to change the business model and change the measures of success. Now that to some people is not palatable, because obviously it costs more. So it is what it is. but I can promise you that getting it built right the first time is a lot cheaper than getting my team in to retrofit it for you, and you'll get a better result. So, to me, that's really important. So Sonia, obviously I'm talking too much, so just skip me along to the next slide. So I think that we all know the benefits of a really good thermal envelope. And once again, I can only concur with what Danielle said. You know, have a look. There can't be a lack of coverage. And when you get your house retrofitted, obviously you have to work around things that are in situ, be that things like ducting, be it anything, be it the hot water services in the roof, or things like that. This is the kind of stuff that we deal with. But what you want is to make sure you got a draft stopper over your exhaust fans, you got a bat over the top of your manhole, and these are really common, simple kinds of things, and that your insulation goes through to the top plate. Now, if you have a low-rise roof, so let's say, for example, you're putting in an R5 into your ceiling, you have a low-rise roof, there is actually perimeter bats that can go in there. So it won't be R5 through to the perimeter, but it will basically still provide you with really, really good coverage.
I'm back.
So I wonder where you disappeared to, because my slide had disappeared, but that's okay.
Yeah, so I couldn't follow now for the last couple of seconds, but I think
it was a pearl, Sonia. It was words of wisdom you can't even imagine.
I think what I really want to tap into is also like EnviroFlex is actually coming across a lot of the bad, the ugly parts, and then actually add some really magic to it. So maybe you know, like, because this is also embedded in service quality and what your staff encounters out there. So maybe tell us a little bit.
Yeah, it's really interesting at the moment. I mean, obviously with the weather, things go through cycles and things like that. Now, firstly, asbestos. Obviously, if we see asbestos, we're straight out of there. If you're going to do your own installs, as I say, retrofit is hard yakka, but you need the appropriate PPE, right, to begin with. If you come across asbestos, you get out of your roof and you get the experts in to get rid of it. Likewise, with different molds, some are more toxic than others. And certainly in underfloors in Victoria, we've been seeing a real rise in the amount of mold that's about at the moment. And quite frankly, over the last few years. Now, one of the key things that we focus on, and in terms of the retrofit training that has been developed, you know, is the need for all of our workers to go home at the end of the day, and the homeowner to be safe. Now, wiring, particularly if you're in a house like Sonia was saying, what's yours, 100 years old or something like that, you know, you need to make sure that your wiring is fit for purpose. So at EnviroFlex, we insist on a certificate of wiring of electrical compliance, and we organise that for you. One of the reasons that we do that is quite a few houses have, believe it or not, secondary sources of power into their roof. It's more common than you think, actually. And but also you end up with wiring needs to be elevated. It should be elevated and put along the joists and fixed there. You can't enclose wiring in 2 layers of insulation. So you can have wiring sitting on plaster and then insulation in top of it because it's not fully enclosed, but you can't have it in between insulation. But look, so one of the big things is to get your wiring sorted, and that just gives you peace of mind as well. And certainly with safety in mind, whenever we go and install and you want to DIY wiring it, you know, turn your power off while you're doing it, yeah, and make sure you're safe.
Yeah.
So, Sonia, what have you got here for me? You've got an install. So where we've gone in and we've cleared out things and basically gone in and installed bats, actually.
Yeah, I think these are the before photos. We like last time we had Enviroflex on, we had the chance actually to listen to one of your clients in Hyatt Victoria.
Oh,
And these
yes,
are the
yes.
before photos.
Gorgeous.
So
yeah.
yeah, to give a little bit of a, you know, run through how it looked like before. And then
Yeah.
what have you done actually in terms of sending you guys out and getting that fixed?
It looks like a bed. It looks like you could sleep on it, right?
Yeah, much
It's
nicer.
it's beautiful. It's
And no
absolutely
holes in the
beautiful.
blanket. No holes in the blanket.
And
That's
no
what I like to see.
holes. No holes. So, but look, if we were to go back to the other picture, to me that kind of looks like cellulose, or it looks like a lot of dust sitting. Actually, it looks like a lot of dust sitting over the top of bats. So it's an interesting thing. A lot of people ask, you know, whether we recommend that you remove bats, or sorry, whether we recommend that you remove insulation. Some people do. Some of my colleagues do sit there and say, you know, get it out. Unless it's damaged, I tend to sit there and say it's doing something. Let's go in over the top of it. Or sorry, not me. My team tend to say that. Let's go in over the top of it and use what you've got there. So, but yeah, so you can see and the difference it made. And for those of you who weren't here last time, you know, she was just effusive in the difference that it had made to her home. Sonia, rather than me talking up my team, you might like to recall the ladies' comments.
Yeah, I think it really changed her way actually to feel comfortable in her home. It reduced cost and really gave her that feeling not to turn on constantly the heating or the cooling. And I think these areas are really important because comfort is more than just a temperature or just a number. It is actually how you know, feel in the living space you're creating. And if you haven't experienced it probably previously, it makes actually a huge difference. I can only recommend even booking in maybe an Airbnb with a really like high performing home. And there are a couple of across Victoria who are offering these things, and experience it, what it means, and you will feel the difference. And it's a very, very nice way actually to look at it. And maybe on the side even of costs, I think in terms of installation, and like Lisa, you can jump in. I think it's a fairly affordable actually retrofit initiative you can take on and get really a lot out of it. So probably something really to
Sonia, you've hit my favorite topic, right? So the cheapest thing that you can do is improve your thermal envelope. And you do that with draft proofing, and you do that with insulation. And I wrote a manifesto years ago, and I keep banging on about it. But basically, you know, people are putting solar on their roofs. Why would you not reduce the energy that you need first? And to me, that's really key, because you might need less solar panels, and it might be more affordable for you, and all of these kinds of things. So insulation and draft proofing are the cheapest things that you can do. Now, interestingly, you were talking before about the comfort and how it impacts homeowners. And often one of the things that people throw our way is, you know, how does that impact my energy bills? And I'm sure, Danielle, you hear this all the time. Now, we do an enormous amount of social housing and you know, and low-income housing retrofits. And what often happens is that their energy consumption doesn't decrease. It slightly increases from this. just from this I'm talking about, because for the first time they're actually putting their heaters on, because they know that it can actually be stored in the house. And, you know, and that is creating the comfortable home. So when we talk about the healthy home programs, we did the insulation for the Healthy Homes program, the Victorian program, and Danielle touched on the medical savings. So the on average per person, so that when they did the stats at the end and the review, on average per person, there was a reduction in medical expenses of over $800. And the reason that this is the World Health Organization pulled together a report years ago talking about the optimal temperature range that people, my apologies, and I promise you it's not 6 degrees. So, you know, it's like 18 degrees through to 22 degrees. So if people are able to maintain that, they're able to be healthier. Sorry, the flow-on impact to that is not only their physical health, it is their mental health. There has been studies done overseas about arguments within co-living spaces, so families or whatever. You know, people who live in extreme cold are actually on edge. If we could also then go on and talk about GDP in terms of loss of work days and things like that. There's an enormous amount of benefits from staying within that range as much as you can, you know, to promote healthy living.
Simona, do we have any other question for Felicia?
Yes, let me just check the list again. You talked already a bit, you know, like quality difference, you know, to normal installers. But yeah, one thing is, you know, often for many people, it looks like wall insulation gets in the, you know, it's too hard basket, or people think, you know, it can't be done, or, you know, it doesn't have much impact. You know, is that actually true? You know, I know it isn't, but, you know, can you maybe elaborate a bit on that?
Simone, I'm so glad you asked. So Enviroflex is one of the few companies in Australia that actually perform retrofit into cavity walls of insulation. You don't need to take your plaster off. So what we do is we come along and we drill a hole in the either through the mortar if it's brick or brick veneer, or through the weatherboards, or we can go inside, so through the plaster. And it's about a size of a 20-cent piece, and we pump in a silicon treated glass wall or a rock wall, and that then provides an insulation base. So at the bottom, it's if there's a cavity there and a footing that needs to be filled, that's filled with polyester. So any draw of moisture through brick or any other, then just drains through. So the insulation does not absorb any moisture. And I can tell you, I can give you a fantastic example, because when people ask me about this, so I talked before about my little cottage in Richmond. It's brick veneer. Oh no, it's not. Sorry, it's brick. It's a really bad build. Brick on the side wall. We pumped insulation in there. We have a box guttering. I'd never had a box guttering before. It got filled with rubbish. We had one of those huge deluges that we had last year, and we literally had water cascading down the internal wall, and it just completely dried out. And there's no moisture. So there's no mold or anything of that ilk.
That's great.
So sorry, Simone, does that answer it?
Yeah. I just wanted to say several of my clients have used your pump-in insulation with phenomenal results. So the houses turned out really, really well.
Oh, and do you know, it's fantastic, because also it depends, the result that you get depends on the size of the cavity, right? So brick veneers, you tend to get fantastic results because there's bigger cavity. But it does vary, and you know, Simone, one of the things that you would find like my guys, you know, they'll also go along, and if you've got a double brick that only has a really tiny gap, they'll sit there and say, yeah, no, yeah.
Yeah, but I guess
Go.
there was a question as well from someone in the chat thing, you know, is it actually worthwhile if I can only insulate one wall at a time or one side of the house? Is it actually worthwhile doing it? Or should you wait until you can insulate the entire house? You know, is there even a point?
So really interesting. So there's been lots of testing done on cocooning, in particular in social housing. In fact, Geelong Sustainability won an award on it, the Premier's Award last year, I think, on some
They
cocooning
did that
trials.
project, wasn't it? The Climate Safe Homes. They did the Climate Safe Homes project, didn't they? Which got some really. I'll just save you from talking for a minute, Felicia. While you get your throat back, because I know how difficult.
I'm sorry.
No, but that project went really well, where they basically did rooms in a house, and then sort of other areas. So there was like one safe room, if you like, one climate safe room in the homes. And I understand that it was extremely successful.
And look, and if you can seal off that room effectively, you know, once again, if you've still got gaps, you're going to have a problem, right? Sorry, you tell I'm in Melbourne, can't you? Anyway, you know, if you're able to create, so I'm just thinking, if I'm thinking about my bedroom, so if I fill the walls and then I create a barrier under the door, I'm effectively creating a cocoon, and it will stay warm. And you know, so yes, it is worthwhile. Now, other people also often talk about doing one wall. Typically, that happens with regard to heat, though, in terms of where heat is hitting a wall, and they actually want to reduce the transference. And yeah, and that works. That works also. So, you know, when orientation hasn't worked, when you, Danielle, as you said, when your building's already oriented in a certain way.
Yeah, look, I have come across it, and insulating the wall is definitely one of the options. But there are other options out there. Simple shading it, you know, or planting trees there to shade it really cuts a lot. I mean, the main thing on especially west facing walls is to keep the sun off it if you can, to stop the heat build up in the first place. But shading it is one option, insulating it's another. And you can shade it through a lot of easy ways, just some cheap old shade cloth, or, you know, growing plants or whatever. There's also paints that you can put on that are heat reflective paints that are quite good and quite effective. So few options, different price points, and, you know, the right option for a house will depend on the house, really, and what's...
Yeah, Danielle, I think this is a really interesting part. Maybe just to mention, because we had tapped in previous webinars also on these combined solutions, and it really depends on what home you have. Like, for example, if you're limited in adding wall insulation, you know, you have always an alternative to make that work still. Roof insulation usually works in most of the cases, I would say. And it's a really great way, actually. And we have seen even on your slides that it's a top priority, actually, to consider. So
I think building insulation
is
a no-brainer and a must-have for every single house. Doesn't matter where you are in the country, every single house should at least have decent ceiling insulation.
Absolutely,
well, and certainly, you know, all of the government programs that we do, that is the focus, is ceiling insulation. And, you know, never lose sight of the fact that hot air rises, right? Years ago, I spoke to a guy who gave me the greatest way to look at it, and it was, heat wants everything to be the same temperature as it, so it will find a way to escape because it wants everything to be the same temperature. And you know, that is ever true. So our job in terms of keeping our home thermally efficient is to stop that, right? Is to try and block it from escaping or coming in, basically. Now, one thing, sorry, Sonia and Danielle, they've both touched on, I'm sure Daniel will too, on on different things that you can do that are cheaper and just a little bit different. You know, if you guys aren't on the Facebook group, My Electric Efficient Home, you know, get on it. It's a wealth of information. Sort through what you like, what you don't like. There's a lot of really knowledgeable people, sorry.
You do get an awful lot of conflicting information on there at times though, but you need to be careful with it. I've found.
You do
I mean, I've been on it and I've checked it, and some of the things you look at and you go, oh, actually, no, not for that state. I wouldn't be doing that. But, you know, so I think, you know, it's a really good source of information, but I think sometimes it can be a bit of misinformation as well. So, you know, you kind of just got to be a bit careful and come to forums like this to find out what, you know, what the right thing is if you can. Sorry, I see there's quite a few questions in the chat.
Absolutely. Tons and tons of information out there, and just check it out. But you know, there's a lot of passionate people out there that are prepared to help. And Danielle, please, I 100% agree. You know, there's lots of great people. There's lots of people who are very well-meaning, and there are the occasional people who are not so. So you just need to sort through it a little bit, but there's lots of information. Well,
they're just not so well informed, you know, and sometimes things that work for them aren't necessarily the right solution for someone else. So I think as long as people are mindful of that and, you know, do a bit more research as well, other than just don't just rely on the website. There is a lot of good stuff on there, but don't just rely on just that. Anyway.
Well, with that in mind,
sorry, thank you for putting up with me coughing. Sorry, thank you for putting up with me. I'm going to go get a tissue now that Danielle's going to start.
No worries. So yeah, I want to give Danielle Worm a chance actually to talk about Green Building Institute. So I hand it over to you, Danielle.
Thanks. So I think what Danielle and Felicia have spoken about really lays the groundwork for what I'm going to say, because I think they've shown that it matters. It matters how insulation is installed. It matters who installs it, how it's installed, how the building's designed. So that's one of the reasons why the Green Building Institute was established, was to train builders and designers, architects, about how they can go about building more energy efficient and more sustainable homes. So, for example, we heard before that if only 5% of insulation is missing, you get about a 30% lower R value of that particular wall or ceiling. So 5% is actually tiny. So, but unfortunately, as a tradie, I can say this, most tradies don't care about energy efficiency. They don't understand it. They've never been trained. I would say I'm just through my experience with the insulation industry, I would say less than 10% of them actually have had any training whatsoever. Would I be right, Felicia? You've got, we can't hear you. You've got mute. Anyway, that's been my experience, and the same goes with the many trades, many builders. Most builders have not been trained, and they're just trying to catch up with the bare minimum standards. So we've established the Energy Smart Builders program, which is a program for builders. Basically, they can get one-on-one mentoring to help them to understand energy efficiency, how they can implement technology and design into the way that they build, and also to train their staff to build more energy efficient homes. So these are nationally recognised qualifications that we're offering them. Also with designers, we've got the Sustainable Residential Design Program, which trains building designers to build more sustainably. And not just about energy efficiency, it's also, we know that sustainability is holistic. It's not just about the energy efficiency of the building. It's got to be holistic. With insulation installers, we really recommend that people try and choose installers that are EEC certified or certified by the Energy Efficiency Council. So the Energy Efficiency Council have a certification program for insulation installers. It means that insulation installer has been properly trained. There's a rigorous program they've got to have rigorous training, and it can even save your life and their life. So even when it comes to, a lot of people are tempted to do DIY insulation installation. That can be dangerous. Felicia's spoken about some of the risks with dust, asbestos, but also electrical risks. So only 2 months ago, there was an insulation installer electrocuted and killed on the job in Sydney, and he was doing a retrofit. And I mean, it was an absolute tragedy. That particular installer, his boss was supposed to be getting trained and did not provide the training. And so the electricity was never isolated or disconnected. And so it led to that person losing their life. We definitely don't want anyone to lose their life installing insulation. So please, if you are tempted to do DIY, make sure you disconnect the power completely. But we really recommend that you try and get qualified, trained installers.
Daniel, sorry, my apologies. You did just ask me, and I was on mute and trying to recover from blowing my nose and everything. You're exactly right. You know, there is now, you know, it's only been relatively recent that training is available in Victoria. And, you know, quite frankly, my team are the only people who've actually gone through the training and who are EEC certified at this point. But we anticipate that there will be an uplift in this. And we hope that there will be an uplift in this because, you know, quite frankly, if you're a painter, you need to have a certification, you know, a Cert 3 or something like that. So we want this to be something that is embraced so that we get excellence.
Yes, so I'm one of the trainers for the insulation training program, and we have trained hundreds of installers around Australia over the last 12 months, but the majority of them have been in other states, but we are training more people here in Victoria too. And I personally, even on my own house, I found that the builder got his apprentices to install the insulation. They had no idea. They didn't even know what an R value was. So I ended up having to project manage the build and had to basically teach them how to do it. And then I basically had to go back over all of their work and check it all again and do it again. So yeah, there's a massive issue here in Victoria, but really across Australia with the way that insulation is installed. So if you can, get someone who's trained and qualified to do it. With GBI...
But then if I can just say one thing, you know, like you said, sometimes people have a builder and they choose their team and you might not have an influence on that. So if that happened, I would say either engage an external consultant to check the insulation, or similar to Daniel, go in yourself and check it. You know, don't just rely on how the builder knows what they're doing. They might not, especially if they don't have the certification. So, you know, you have to be a bit proactive. So.
Absolutely. So look for the EEC certified symbol. They'll usually advertise it on their website. On the Green Building Institute website, we also have a directory of trades and builders who are trained and certified. So we've got builders, we've got designers, we've got energy assessors. We've now got insulation installers on there as well, who've been trained and are certified and can provide you with advice and do the job properly. So yeah, that's kind of what the main points that I wanted to make. And of course, we invite any builder. So if you've got a builder, if you've engaged a builder or a designer or an insulation installer, and they're not trained or certified, please tell them about this training and say, hey, have you done it? And support the companies that have taken the time and made the effort to get trained and certified, because they're trying to do the right thing.
So on that note, maybe also to let everyone know, Evitat has partnered with Green Building Institute. That will also open doors, for example, to connect between recommendations within Lookbook and these outcomes directly through to that expertise. We will also then pull in some of that expertise into referrals and listings. So this is exactly how we can actually enable a better ecosystem and making it easier to find the expertise, but also to have some hands-on knowledge, what to look for, what to check, maybe even within these retrofitting projects or even new builds. And as Simone even said, go in and know at least the basics, and ask the right questions. At least you're doing that same process even when you're buying a car. You're checking if there are 4 tires, for example, installed. You wouldn't buy just 3 or something. It wouldn't work for a car. This is the same due diligence, and your home is actually one of the biggest spending. So make sure you get actually what you're expecting actually that home to deliver. Yeah, thank you, Danielle, for this. This was a really great way actually to understand what goes into training, and also how to look out actually for expertise. So on that note, because I'm also conscious of time,
Sonia, sorry, I know
Yep.
we're running out of time, but can I just add one thing in, and Daniel touched on it. Look for the trained people, because I can promise you, and they will display the symbols of their trade, because it's cost them to get them. And the big thing there is it might cost you more to get someone who's certified or accredited in whatever trade you're looking at, right? In whatever trade you're looking at. But I can promise you that their margins are lower than Rob, Bob, and their ute, who aren't paying for all the different appropriate employments, the insurances, and all that kind of stuff. So you're gonna do it once. All I can do is encourage you to do it properly. So
yeah, exactly.
that's exactly what Daniel and Danielle was saying as well.
Absolutely. And this is exactly even why we have started Evitat, because we have experienced, like even in our renovation journey, these difficulties actually. How do you choose someone? What are these criteria? Evitat has been actually conceived through that lens and applies a vetting process to manufacturers, to suppliers, but as well to the professionals and service expertise. So within that, we only list those ones who meet certain criteria and accreditation certifications. And with that said, there's also an integrated logbook for sustainable homes. I will maybe share quickly my example here, just so you can follow this. For example, if you are adding, let's say, insulation, you can add that on your terms. You can also, like we are just rolling out, for example, a feature which enables you to upload, for example, an order document. Even if you are receiving that from the builder maybe, or have something from the past, you can start actually uploading certain things like hot water heat pump, order documents, invoices, and it will read out that information automatically, add that to the repository, and you will automatically see actually how it contributes to your impact across 6 core categories. That means healthy home, comfortable, affordability, efficiency, social and environmental responsibility, or carbon emissions. With that, you are creating a great way to demonstrate to future buyers, for example, what investments you have done over time. And with that, you have a great way actually to create value and long-term sustainable value to your home. So it connects you, like I said, also to vetted material choices, renewable energy solutions, and also to that professional expertise. So I can only invite you. It's free to start and to use. So if anyone wants to have a try and jump in, feel free to use that resource. And we are pretty much a little bit over time. This was a packed session. I want to, in particular, thank you all the panelists tonight. It was quite amazing to hear. Hello. Everyone's, experience, but also expertise, of course, in these specific areas. So big thank you to everyone for joining us tonight. And if you want to ask additional questions, feel free to drop additional questions in community. Felicia is also, like, if you mention her, she can jump in, answer things. Danielle is now also a new member, so feel free to mention whoever you want maybe to ask directly. Yeah, or go to their website as well, with great expertise and services. So yes, and hopefully we can improve altogether these homes, existing homes, because we have lots of them and they are really important actually to improve for the future of Australian housing stock. So on this note, thank you. And I wish everyone a beautiful evening and hope to see you all soon.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Sonia.
Bye.
Thanks, fellow panelists. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
guys.